The year is 605 BCE, and a decisive battle is about to change the fate of empires and redraw the balance of power in the ancient Near East. This is the Battle of Carchemish, one of the most pivotal conflicts of its time, fought between the powerful Neo-Assyrian Empire and the rising Babylonian Empire, aided by the Medes. The battle also marked a confrontation between Egypt's pharaoh Necho II and the Babylonians under the command of the future king Nebuchadnezzar II. This clash, fought at the ancient city of Carchemish along the Euphrates River, would shift the course of history and deliver a fatal blow to the weakening Assyrian dynasty. To understand the events leading to this fateful battle, we must first examine the political landscape of the Near East. For centuries, the Assyrians were the dominant force in the region, known for their military cruelty and administrative prowess. But by the late 7th century BCE, their power was waning. The capital Nineveh had fallen to a coalition of Babylonians and Medes in 612 BCE, signaling the collapse of the empire. Yet Assyrian leadership clung to its last bastion, Haran, another vital city in northern Mesopotamia. When Haran fell, the Assyrians retreated further, taking refuge in Carchemish under Ashur-uballit-Tikin, the last Assyrian king. Ashur-uballit II, the last Assyrian king, stands resolute in Carchemish, a symbol of the embattled empire's final stand. At this crucial juncture, Egypt entered the scene. Pharaoh Necho II, recognizing the strategic importance of keeping Assyria as a buffer state between Egypt and the growing dominions of Babylon, provided military support to Ashur-uballit. For Egypt, this alliance was not born out of loyalty but rather cold geopolitical calculation. The domination of Babylon and Media threatened Egypt's trade routes and influence in the Levant. By propping up the remnants of the Assyrian Empire, Egypt hoped to maintain its foothold in the region. To secure his position, Necho II marched north with his army toward Carchemish in 609 BCE. However, on the way he faced an unexpected opponent, Josiah, king of Judah. In a bold attempt to block Egypt's expansion, Josiah confronted Necho at the Battle of Megiddo but was killed, marking a significant loss for Judah as it fell into Egyptian vassalage. Necho II's forces continued their advance, joining the Assyrians at Carchemish, where they fortified the city and made preparations for the coming conflict. On the other side of the Euphrates, a young and ambitious Babylonian prince, Nebuchadnezzar II, was rising to prominence. Nebuchadnezzar was charged by his father Nabopolassar to lead the Babylonian forces against the Egyptians and remaining Assyrians. For Babylon, this was more than just a battle. It was an opportunity to consolidate control over the region and eradicate the last vestiges of the Assyrian Empire. Both sides understood the stakes, and Carchemish became their decisive battleground. In 605 BCE, the Babylonian army crossed the Euphrates, marching toward Carchemish with determination. Nebuchadnezzar, a skilled strategist, organized his forces meticulously, preparing a combined attack of infantry, archers, and chariots, a hallmark of Babylonian warfare. The Egyptian-Assyrian forces, commanded by Necho II, were stationed inside the city, bolstered by their chariot corps and experienced warriors. Both sides stood ready, their fates intertwined in the decisive battleground of Carchemish. The battle itself was a brutal and unforgiving clash. Nebuchadnezzar's forces assaulted the Egyptian and Assyrian defensive positions outside the city walls, engaging in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Babylonian archers rained down volleys of arrows on their opponents, while the chariots clashed on open terrain, creating chaos among the ranks. Nebuchadnezzar's leadership was evident. He adapted rapidly to battlefield conditions, outmaneuvering Necho's troops with superior tactics and discipline. One key turning point came when the Babylonians broke through the Egyptian-Assyrian front lines, forcing them into retreat. Nebuchadnezzar pressed the advantage, relentlessly pursuing the fleeing forces. The rout was devastating. The remnants of the Assyrian army were annihilated, and the Egyptians faced catastrophic losses. Carchemish fell to the Babylonians, ending the long and storied reign of the Assyrian Empire. Ashur-uballit II likely perished in the retreat, his fate unknown, marking the end of Assyrian leadership. For Necho II, the defeat at Carchemish was a humiliating blow, one that shattered Egypt's ambitions in the Near East. Pharaoh's forces retreated in disarray, abandoning their allies and losing their influence over the Levant. Although Necho maintained control over Egypt itself, his failure to halt the Babylonian advance marked the decline of Egyptian power in the region. Nebuchadnezzar II's victory, on the other hand, cemented Babylon's dominance. Within months of the battle, the young commander ascended to the throne following the death of his father. Nebuchadnezzar would go on to become one of Babylon's greatest kings, overseeing a golden age of cultural and architectural achievements, including the construction of the famous Hanging Gardens. The Battle of Carchemish wasn't just a military conflict. It was a moment of profound geopolitical transformation. The old world of Assyrian supremacy gave way to a new Babylonian empire that would dominate the region for decades, until its eventual conquest by the Persians. The battle had ripple effects across the ancient Near East. The collapse of the Assyrian Empire reshaped alliances, trade routes, and power dynamics, while Egypt's retreat marked the end of its ambitions as a major player in Mesopotamian affairs. Carchemish symbolized a changing of the guard, a transition from the brutal tactics of Assyrian imperialism to Babylonian sophistication and statecraft. As we reflect on the significance of the battle, it's clear that Carchemish was more than just the twilight of one empire. It was the dawn of another. It highlighted the brutality and inevitability of change in the ancient world, a reminder that in the theater of history, survival demands adaptation, and empires rise and fall with the tides of war. And so, with the victory at Carchemish, Nebuchadnezzar II stepped into the annals of history as a commander and king, propelling Babylon to the forefront of ancient civilization, while the names of the Assyrians faded into obscurity.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.